Hello, I'm Yvonne Battle-Felton, and thank you for letting me spend time with you today. It's such a joy to be here with you, and I say here, recognizing that we are in separate cities and buildings and locations, and just anywhere in the world as possible. And so I really appreciate you spending time with me today. So I'll tell you a little bit about me, and then I'm going to do a little bit of reading. So again, my name is Yvonne, and I'm an author. I have written a historical fiction novel. My novel is called Remembered, and it's the story of a mother whose son has been beaten by police in 1910 Philadelphia. As he lays dying in the hospital, she, along with her dead sister, tell him stories in order to lead him home. So home has a couple of different meanings in the book, and if you read it, you'll have a chance to kind of explore the different ways that I use it. And that's probably because in my own life, I'm also searching for home and what that might look like. I'm from the US. I grew up in New Jersey. I was born in Pennsylvania. And I lived in Maryland for 20 years. And then I moved my family to the UK so I could do my PhD at Lancaster. And so lately, I think I've been thinking a lot about home and where that is, and what that might look like, and that whole idea of returning, and where I would return to, and where I might, I guess, put down roots and just really feel this is where I'm meant to be. And so in the book, the characters are also defining home, and they're defining and redefining freedom and love and happiness. And so the characters, they are emancipated slaves, and it explores their journey to their identity, and what that means to them, but also how they might carve and collect stories, and also family. So it is historically influenced fiction. It's a frame novel. So it's 24 hours of the American past told over 24 hours of the American further past, 24 years of the American past. So the frame is 1910 Philadelphia, and that's the present tense of the novel. In those 24 hours, we are taken through a journey of 24 years of the slaveholding past, just a glimpse of slavery in the U.S. Because I wanted to look at the emancipation and what that might be like for families, how they might reconnect and find one another, but also how individuals might find themselves. And that was because I wanted stories about emancipated slaves from a perspective that might be like theirs. I wanted to explore that legacy of slavery in the U.S. because we're still living that legacy of slavery. Of course, we're still living that in the U.K. as well, and there's repercussions, and we still see those in systematic racism and oppression. And it's not unique to the U.S., but it is in the U.S., it is in the U.K., and I wanted to write about it, to explore it. But I also wanted to look at motherhood, and look at relationships between mothers and their children, and also the things that mothers are willing to do and sometimes have to do in the situations that they find themselves in order to protect the ones that they love. What might a mother be willing to do? How far might she go? How might an emancipated or even an enslaved mother be able to protect their children, especially in that climate when those children weren't considered as being owned by their parents? They were considered property. They were considered property of the slave owner. So someone who didn't love them had the legal right to decide where they were going to be, whether they were going to live, what they were going to do, how far they would go away. And so parents really weren't able to protect their children fully. And yet that was used against them. And when they were set free, emancipated, there were laws that were enacted so that they couldn't actually enjoy true freedom. So there were systems put in place that meant that they could be re-enslaved if they couldn't support one another or support their children. And so, I really wanted to look at what this was like for my characters. And so Remembered started out with questions because I wanted to find out how families might have reconnected, how they might have found one another, how people found themselves. And then I ended up, recognizing the power of stories and the ways that I always knew that I was a person who got to know people through their stories. But it was interesting to me to see how important story was for my characters as well, and how they used story in order to craft their legacy, because that's all they could give to one another. But I also wanted a love story. So I wanted my characters to love and to be loved, to find and explore or be seeking and defining love. And so the book kind of explores a lot of different things that were interesting to me. And that just came out organically from the writing of the book. So I'm going to read one of my favorite scenes to you. And in it, it's probably a reminder about the power of love, because some things, of course, ended up differently in the book than they had in my imagination or in drafts. And so characters in drafts who had love ended up maybe losing it. But I also write short stories. And when I'm writing short stories, those are contemporary fiction usually. And I write creative nonfiction. And I also write for kids. When I write for kids, I write nonfiction, but I'm also writing adventure. So back to Remembered. It is 1862. And we're in Maryland. Only the porch is base. It has to be. Anyone fool enough to bound up the creaking wooden step, hop one-legged down the sagging porch, run around the shaky dinner table made up of splintering crates, and risk toppling tin plates and wooden bowls while yelling, "Sanctuary!" and skirting around a ring full of women who had spent hours baking, dusting, cleaning, and boiling, and now only wanted a minute to relax without someone underfoot, deserves to be free from being tagged. Fair is fair. You know the rules, Tempe announces. No hiding in the water. No hiding near the water, I add. No getting dirty, Tempe says. No getting anyone else dirty. No loud yelling. No roughhousing. What can we do? Watson, always grinning, asks. Boy, with all those teeth in your mouth at one time, how do you have room for questions? Tempe teases. Watson flinches. Tempe's going to count to 100. You all run and hide. We'll find you, I say. What if you don't find us before supper? Little Ivy asks. You won't eat, Tempe answers. We'll find you, and if not, I won't eat until we do. I smooth the sprinkling of tears off Ivy's cheeks. And if you reach sanctuary, Tempe pauses, winding her arms in wide, flourishing circles while I point to the porch. You win. Has anyone ever reached sanctuary? Watson asks. Tempe and I think it over. Nope. I close my eyes and hold a finger up as Tempe counts. 1, 2, 3. The heavy padding of careless feet gives the little ones away. One hides in a nearby tree. One scampers to the edge of the wood, turns and burrows beneath the canopy. 2 hide in tall grass on the side of the house. One heavy-footed one, probably Franklin, stomps behind the house. Another one hides underneath a tin washtub. One shifts 1 foot to the other. There's always a runner. Please, just go hide behind the house. I'm sweaty, and the thought of chasing one of them makes me hotter. What do you think they talk about in there? Tempe asks, somewhere between 25 and 29. Men. Why would they do that? Well, you heard the men. They just talk about the women. I've been practicing my grown-up voice. The men only talk about the women when they want the women to know what they're talking about. How do you know that? I've heard women talk about when women ain't around. Are y'all even counting? A little voice asks from behind the wash basin. 65, Tempe yells. Giggles, swishing grass, the curling and uncurling of little legs in tight places, and then silence. The silence of little children waiting for something good and terrible all at once. Gotcha makes little hearts beat faster. Well, what do they talk about? I ask. Sex. Told ya. And politics and religion and war and freedom. All that. And more when they get riled up. Is that what you do at night? Go down and listen to the hired hands talk? Sometimes. The words fall out and I can't do nothing to get them back. Tempe looks down when she answers. Tempe can't hold her lies any more than old Mrs. can hold her liquor. Flash of brown skin and dingy denim. Ready or not, here we come, Tempe shouts. Watson, long brown legs and thin bony arms flailing, is already halfway to the porch. He's panting and sweating. His chest pumps hard. I just watch it, glistening. Run. Tempe's long, shapely legs carry her to within inches of Watson. It don't look like she's hardly breathing. She cuts through the yard with hardly no effort at all. It don't seem fair. Tempe can catch him any time she wants. She knows the land and made the rules. Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. I tap each little head quickly, dashing from one to the next so I can turn back to the race. There are no tears this time. The little hearts race along with Watson's. Run. Watson is just a few strides ahead of Tempe. If she leans forward just a little more, she'll have him. If not, he'll reach the porch, sanctuary, seconds before her. He slows, and even from the back of his head, I know he's grinning. He zags sharply. You're running the wrong way. I can't get the words out fast enough, but then I see. He isn't running the wrong way at all. The women must have heard the commotion. Armed with broomsticks, they take to the porch in synchronized annoyance. They stand guard. Around back, the men have already stopped talking about the war, escape, and freedom. They're out front, gruff voices whispering. Run. Tempe must have seen it then. We all do. Watson isn't running for the porch. Tempe stops. She stands still whispering. Run. 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 Along with everybody else. Watson never stops running. I wish he had taken me with him. So, thanks so much for joining me and for letting me spend time with you. Bye-bye.